Today's show is brought to you by America's #1 sports app, Prize Picks. And when you use my code, my or Brennan's code, in fact, we got the same one, so you don't have to pick HMA or just click the link down in the description section below. And you get down a mere $5 winning ticket, just a $5 winning ticket. They will put $150 into your account on that winning ticket. That's a hell of a deal when you use that code HMA. Just click that link in the description section. You got baseball going, football going, seasonal picks. I'm told by Brendan, if you just want to pick the game picks, because in the state of Washington, there are some limitations outside of the casinos and that are still getting the rules kind of locked down, but you can just do the game picks themselves outside of actually a casino network. So go out there, win yourself some money today. Baseball, football, seasonal picks, fantasy, whatever you may want to get in. Take advantage today. Utilize this code. Go win yourself some money. And do please always remember to gamble responsibly. Terms and conditions do apply. Please do see their site for detail. Oh, baby. We got Brendan in the house, and I couldn't be happier as we got grade A news to start the day off. Things have been just going swimmingly in this angle of things with John and getting these contracts done. And we get maybe the final one to be knocked out, the final that's on your table as far as got to do is to be knocked out. Brendan, it's great to have you in the house, but brother, I got to get your thoughts off the rip on Leonard Williams getting extended in a 3-year, $90 million deal.
This is the one I was waiting for. This is the one that I really wanted to see because Leonard was in the last year of his deal, and I don't believe that a player of his caliber could possibly be happy playing out his contract year in the NFL. That's just not how it works. And I find it hard to believe that the team would be planning on keeping him around long term if they made him play on that final year of his deal. So really happy to see this one. I know it's a lot of money, and look, we'll see how the contract lays out. For all we know, this will come back to bite us at some point a little bit. But Leonard Williams is special. You don't just replace a guy like a Leonard Williams. He is one of the best players on this team. He's one of the best players in the league at the position that he plays. And I believe that there's just no opportunity for this team with what they built to replace a guy like Leonard Williams effectively. So, yeah, the money's a little bit high. I understand that some people are going to look at that and wonder, okay, what about Sam Darnold? Are we going to get to keep Sam Darnold? What about A.J. Barner? What about this guy? What about that guy? But I'm not going to worry about that right now because we just got a really, really good player for what I would consider to be appropriate value, even at his age. And I think that's something to be happy about right now because we are in our window right now. You know, if we got a couple of little problems down the line, okay, I can live with that. Let's keep this window open as much as we can right now. And the way to do that is by extending Leonard Williams.
Yeah, you go, it's not broken, don't break it. Keep things until stuff shows the signs of it starting to pull back and weaken. Then that's when you start to take those steps. But when you're at your strength and you're riding high, then keep it going. I agree with you. I think you're intimating a little bit, Brendan, that even if this deal should come down the line to seeming costly in 28, 29, where there's some real pain to be had there, and you're maybe not even gonna have Leonard on the deal at that point, you're more than willing to make that leap if that's the requirement in order to get this deal done.
Right. And odds are good. It's not going to be that painful because you do have 4 years to stretch the money out on now because you had the 1 year left and then the 3 years you add on. You know there's going to be a little bit of void money in it too because that's been the modus operandi for the Seahawks over the last few years with these big contracts. And this is something we've talked about before. These interior defensive tackles that have a really high base of talent like Leonard Williams, they age really well. They don't suddenly hit the wall at 32, 33 years old, typically. Like, I know
No.
that Chris Jones has kind of diminished, but he hasn't hit the wall yet. He's still a really good player. Like, I know that's where some people would point. And to me, I know that Chris Jones is probably a better player than Leonard Williams over his career. But I think Leonard Williams is a lot more talented. He's got a higher foundation of ability to work with. So I'm not really worried about that aspect of it. And look, this team has probably the best interior defensive line in football locked up for the next 3 years minimum with a Big Cat, with Murphy, and with Riley Mills. So hard to beat that. Like that's hard to get around. That's something that is very valuable in this league. And remember a few years ago when this team had nothing on the interior. There was nothing going on in the middle. And in just like 3 years, we've come so far to the point where I think we're head and shoulders above everyone else in the league.
I do agree with you. And I think that Chris Jones is an interesting comparison to be made because I think the thing that stands out to me with Chris Jones when I watch the Chiefs is that they don't have the rotations that we have. And that when you do take these guys in their early 30s and now you're asking them to go out there and play the snaps that they played at 27, 28, that's how you get down the road of a diminished player by the end of the year. That's how you get down to like with Chris Jones, and he's been very beat up the past couple of years, and that he's not at his best at the end. And I think partly, Brendan, and see if you disagree on this, because you've had to extend him too much because you've not done a proper job from Kansas City's perspective of putting a Byron Murphy, of putting a Riley Mills, of having a Jaron Reed around him. It's kind of a bunch of nobodies at times sort of around him, at least on the defensive tackle position, isn't it?
Right, that's another big factor to it as well. That's another significant element at play here. The Chiefs kind of looked at it as like, well, we'll pay Chris Jones and we're going to pay him so much, we're not going to need much else. And I understand that, on some level, they're kind of forced to do that kind of stuff because of all the money they're paying some of their other players. But it's created a scenario where I don't know if the Chiefs are really getting their money's worth at this point out of Chris Jones. And I think they could. I don't think it would
Yeah.
be impossible for them to do it, but you're right. You're right. There is definitely also with all the extra football they played over the last several years because they always make Super Bowl runs. I think it's all added up a little bit to the point where I don't know if they're thrilled with the way that contract is sitting right now. And I don't think that necessarily applies to Leonard Williams because, like you said, we have the ability and the luxury of not putting everything on the shoulders of Leonard Williams. It's going to be very hard to justify double teaming him when he's out there with Byron Murphy. Even a guy like a Riley Mills, who I know he's not an elite player and probably never will be, but he could be a very annoying pass rusher in sub package downs. Like that is the kind of stuff the Chiefs have not done a great job building in recent years. So absolutely.
Also, kind of nice here as you look at it, we were probably anticipating this being more of maybe a 1, 2 year extension. The fact that it's a 3 year on top of the last is another indicator as well that this is a guy that's not looking to be like Lawrence after this year, my final year, I'm done. We'd wondered a little bit about the timeline for Leonard and how long he wanted to continue to play. It would seem as though this means that we're going to get him for probably 2, maybe even 3 years more by his intentions.
Right. And one thing with Lawrence is that D-Law's had some pretty serious injuries in his career. I think he had the Lis Frank injury thing a while back.
Yeah.
He's had a couple other season-ending injuries. Williams never really been dinged up all that much in his career. So it's probably a little bit easier for him to just be like, yeah, I just want to keep playing football. And also, you had that segment in the Hard Knocks episode a couple weeks ago where he talked about how he was kind of miserable in New York. He hated playing football in those cities because he was a Jet and a Giant, and coming to Seattle just kind of reinvigorated his love. I think he appreciates being in a little bit more of a sequestered area of the country and not having the biggest spotlight on him. And it feels like we really kind of made him rediscover his love for football in a way. And I don't think he's looking to end that relationship with football anytime soon. And it makes sense. It makes sense. So, I mean, I think he can be a great player into like year 35, year 36 for him. So I'm not worried about it at all on that front.
Nor am I. I think is well, you've got another player here that gives you an example from John's perspective about the type of players that he can attack and look for in the league when he's trying to, make trades and, decide when I should give up a little bit extra for player A and what I can know I'm getting back in return. Because in my opinion, Brendan, Leonard has not just been singular in this respect. Quandre Diggs, Carlos Dunlap, guys that you brought in that are from similar organizations that are down in the dumps that you're able to bring to a great organization and you get the best version of those players. There does feel like something here you can replicate too in roster building on what you've been able to learn from the Leonard Williams situation.
Yeah, that is another element to it as well. To a certain extent, Ernest Jones, right? Because you took him from a Titans team that had no hope. When you traded for him, the Titans were very much ripping it down. Shaheed was on a Saints team that hadn't been a playoff team for several years at the time that we traded for him. And
Mm-hmm.
I understand that with Shaheed, we haven't necessarily seen the return in terms of his play on the field, but I believe that we will this year. So there
Yeah.
is that element at play here. And I think you're also seeing with some of this stuff, the culture that this team has built is a real thing now. You're seeing players who want to come here. Like, Dante Fowler was a great example from this most recent season where there were other places he could have gone. And Terry and Arnold, same thing. He had offers from like 7 different teams and he chose here, even though those other teams probably would have given him more opportunities to play. Like there are teams out there with terrible cornerback depth where Terry Arnold maybe could have started, but he chose here. Trayvon Diggs had a couple other options too, but he chose here. So it's happening a lot now, and there's got to be a reason for it.
It is, and it's just one of those great parts about this organization. You look at, Brendan, where it's nice to be a Seahawks fan right now because there's so many things they're doing right. And now we've gone back to, remember we had about a 7-year period there where it didn't feel like we were a destination location anymore. You know, that we were back to being Southern Alaska. Kind of feels like we're back to being a destination location.
Yeah, as much as we need to be, because this is not a team that will typically go out and sign the giant splash free agent. We don't necessarily need that, especially with all the talent we've already got. So we need to be enough of a destination to attract the guys like the DeMarcus Lawrence or Dante Fowler, that crew. And we are, clearly, because even going back to DeMarcus Lawrence, that was a lot less money than people thought he was going to get in free agency that year. I remember it was kind of a shock that he signed for as little as he did. And that kind of stuff doesn't happen without the belief that something special is going to happen here in Seattle if you come. And I mean, it certainly did last year. So why would other players not jump at the opportunity to be a part of that?
Well, and as you said too, you got the Diggs and the Arnold thing too. That's another one where partly because how good you are and how your organization is viewed draws those guys in. And so you're right. It doesn't have to always be the splash signing, just that you're a destination. And then if anything, it's rather than the splash, it's that now to your point, the Leonard DeMarcus Lawrence situation, it's that in being a destination location, I can have a player that will target us and I'm not having to pay max prices to keep that guy here or to bring that guy in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does feel like that, right? You look at some of these other contracts and you look at the contracts we give out. Occasionally it does feel like that. Like when Shaheed got $17 million a year and then Christian Watson got, what was it, 20? And then you've got Romeo Doubs getting a little bit more than Rashid did as well. It's like, this doesn't add up unless maybe there's something about this place that players just appreciate and like.
It does seem like it. It does seem like it. We've got a bunch of different variety of items to go through here today, Brendan. So we're just I'm going to pop through randomly with you on it, probe you on these a little bit. We've got yesterday, the official sale goes through. The owners unanimously vote through the Kosla family to have your Seattle Seahawks now under new ownership for the first time in 30 years. Mm-hmm. Initial thoughts on their press conference and them taking over as owners?
Mostly, it sounded good. They reiterated the fact that they are football fans and have been for a long time. They were talking about, the 70s Steelers. They were talking about the 90s 49ers and stuff like that. So this is not just a venture capitalist business opportunity to these guys. They actually do like sports. They like American football. And I think that's a really important element at play here. These guys do like what's going on when it comes to sports. And I believe that is one of the big reasons why I feel pretty good about where this is going. Overall, I thought the press conference was pretty good. Maybe they could have given a better answer when talking about Lumen Field. He was a little bit, wishy-washy, could have gone one way or the other there. Maybe it was just bad wording. Maybe he's just wanting to keep his options open. But other than that, I thought it was good. The interesting thing, though, is that I think we all understand that ultimately the person of interest here is the son, Neil, because Vinod and his wife are, 71 years old. So they're going to be the owners for a little while here, but the son is going to be the one who really ends up owning the team for decades and decades and decades. So I feel like there's a big mystery there because we don't know a ton about the son, but I overall have a pretty good feeling about it.
No worries, no dark clouds that you sense?
I mean, the only one would just be maybe a fight over the stadium because that's what new owners do, right? They come in and they want a new stadium and then they push for it and sometimes things get ugly. And look, we've had this stadium in place it's been almost 30 years, right? So it is getting a little bit older, but it's still one of the best stadiums in football. So I could see a little bit of a battle over Lumen. Do we need a new stadium? When the lease expires, how much longer do we see Lumen Field being the stadium for the Seahawks? That's the one thing that I'm like, I could see that turning a little bit ugly, but that's years down the line. Other than that, I'm feeling pretty good.
I as well. And that's going to be interesting to see how they navigate those waters eventually, and hopefully not taking a page out of the Bears, the Kansas City Chiefs, and trying to do something strange like that. I don't think they would, but you never know until you see what happens. So we'll just have to learn like everybody else with time on this situation. We've got a Chiefs game coming up preseason wise, and a couple other items I want to talk to you about that are we got some random stuff here today that are all over the place. There's been some news here in the last couple of days. And one of those pieces of news has been something that is I've been dismayed at looking at, which is the NFL on one side of this says, okay, we're going to start finding players less. We're going to stop this egregious crap that we did before, where you have $50,000 for a bad block. I think Zach Charbonnet got hit for something like that a couple of years ago.
I remember that. Yeah.
And it was like, what the hell? And it wasn't even that bad a block. It wasn't like he speared him. It was just like a typical block. And so that part was cool. But then at the same time, the NFL goes, yeah. And then we got this new violation policy that'll have to do with crackback blocks and targeting and this and that and hip drop tackles. And now if you get 3 of these in a year, you'll be suspended for a game. And if you get suspended, then you'll go back to the next year and you'll have 2 and it carries over. And I hate every effing part of this new rule. Absolutely abhorrent rule. Absolutely horrid. But let me know where you stand on it.
Yeah, I got mixed feelings about it. And I think I'm down on it for the same reasons that you are. So on the one hand, let me just say this. I understand that there are things that the league does not want players to do, and money was not a deterrent to it, clearly, especially with the amount of the fines they were giving out for the most part. Very small. So I understand that they're like, okay, we got to take this to another level here. We taking away money, not really doing anything to get rid of this, so we got to start suspending players for games. I understand that mentality, but when you take a look at some of the stuff that is going to be included in this, you've got, for instance, the hip drop tackle, which for the most part, I think happens accidentally. Like hip drop tackles are not malicious. They happen by kind of like just in the process of playing football. There was, I think, launching. Like, what is launching, by the way? I feel like the NFL hasn't done a good job defining what launching is. And you look at that, and then you're thinking, okay, you get 3 of those in a year, you lose a game. In the NFL, where one game is huge because you only play 17 of them. This isn't basketball. You can get suspended for a game in basketball and who cares, right? Like, it's not a big deal to miss one game out of 82 when you were going to miss a bunch of games anyway because of load management. It doesn't matter. But in the NFL, one game suspension is huge. And a lot of this stuff that they're going to get suspended for is probably an accident anyway, because like I just said, yeah, hip drop stuff is just kind of an accident. That's going to be a disaster, I think. So that part of it, especially because remember, the league is now doing this thing where New York can tell the referee after a play is over to call some kind of a conduct penalty like that if they see it on a replay, even if the referee's completely missed it. Like when you throw that in there, it's kind of a... Like it feels like you're going to have a lot of players getting suspended this year for something that wasn't malicious at all. And that could get really dangerous because that's going to affect somebody's season. And that's the part that I can't get into.
Yeah, I think that there's too much arbitrary nature already to officiating calls. Now you're adding more arbitrary stuff for the officials to delve through and the team. And as you said, most of this stuff that happens on these kind of plays is by accident or right on the line. I mean, how many times like the defensive player, if you don't hit him in the neck and head, if you hit him right in the chest, it's clean hit, no flag. If you're up by 2 or 3 inches in a bang, bang, the speed of a bullet type speed going on, and now you hit him up in the head, now it's completely egregious on that. It's just one to me where this could go sideways in so many different directions. And as you said, have guys getting suspended at the worst of times. What if it was for a playoff game? What if the next game you got to do is the playoffs? And again, it carries over, Brendan. It's not a year by year 3 off. It carries over. You have one from the prior year, it's carrying over to the next. If you did 3, this is the messed up one. You do 3 and you become suspended. You start automatically with 2 the very next year. You have 2 strikes on you already next year. So you're already 1 hit away next year from being suspended again. It's to me one where it's just, nobody was asking for this. Nobody's saying that this is an incredibly huge problem. Right now already, Goodell has the ability to suspend these guys. Alshair was suspended, right? When it went too egregious, when he went over the line, when he did too much, he got suspended, right? Didn't the Broncos safety a couple of years ago when he was stepping over the line and doing too much, didn't he get suspended too? Goodell's got the hammer. He's already got the power to do this whenever he wants to do it. So why all this extra stuff?
Yeah. I'm definitely concerned about that element of it too, because it's gonna hopefully, well, it seems like it's designed to try to take the arbitrary nature of punishment and suspension out of it. But I don't know if it will. I kind of feel like that's not going to be the ultimate outcome here. I feel like the ultimate outcome is that you're going to see players missing important games because of, again, I want to stress, an accident. Yeah, it's not an accident. Some things that happen on a football field aren't an accident. Like there's spearing calls where it's clearly malicious. There are plays where, like the horse collar tackle, where sometimes a player just gets in a bad position and panics, so they instinctively grab the back of the jersey. I understand that that kind of stuff can be avoided and can be legislated out of the game, but a hip drop tackle to me is just like it just kind of happens in the natural flow of a football play sometimes. And to my knowledge, last year when they made the hip drop tackle illegal, maybe it's been illegal for 2 years. I'm not 100% sure. My understanding is that most referees just decided not to call it because they realized it would be a bunch of nonsense. And I didn't see any hip drop tackle penalties last season in Seahawks
Hmm.
games. So hopefully this becomes a situation where the referees just decide they're going to ignore that stuff. I'm hoping, kind of like they did with the hip drop stuff, but because they're getting like the replay booth involved, I don't know if you will be able to do that. I wonder if it's going to be completely by the book every week, and that's going to be tough to make work.
I have a hard time with it, man. I think there's this rife for this to go wrong in a lot of different directions, I think. And I think fans are going to hate this the more that they see this come out and how it actually plays out in reality here when we see these stuff go down. So we'll see. It's like you said, it's the booth stuff to where this isn't just the officials, it's now the booth gets to come in. Are they eventually going to open the door so they can just come in during the week and be like, oh, this hit that you did on Sunday, yeah, we're now retroactively calling that a demerit. That's one on your record now. Like, I'm not a fan of this. It's a man's sport, man. It's rough. We got to embrace some of that style of this. And it's just, I don't know. Sometimes I don't expect, don't hit me high, don't hit me low, don't pull me and bring me down. They want you to set the guy down on an effing pillow, basically. And it's like, this just doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, and it's going to create a scenario where it's going to feel like the league is using it to like help manipulate outcomes that they want. That's eventually what it's going to turn into, and even if it's not that, it's going to feel like that. And that's not going to be good. Like, what if there's a big Chiefs Broncos game and the Chiefs need the win, and then you've got a situation where maybe Hafunga on Denver gets suspended for that game because of something kind of borderline that happened the previous week that wasn't even called on the field. Like this is gonna definitely irritate some people. This is definitely gonna lead to some very ugly fights, I think, this season. And maybe it'll be one of those things where it only lasts 1 year because it doesn't work. So that would be nice if it'd be kind of like, remember when they let you challenge pass interference calls and it
Oh
only
yeah.
lasted 1 year? Because I think the reason why it lasted 1 year was because the referees just didn't feel like overturning PI calls ever. So eventually they looked at the percentage of success. It was like probably less than 5%. And eventually the league went, well, this is silly. It's making us look worse because there are obvious PI calls that they're still refusing to call on replay. So maybe it'll be like that. But I do think this is going to be a problem.
We'll just have to keep monitoring it and see how it goes and adjust around it. And you being a defensive run team that likes to hit and be physical, like the Houston Texans, I think are going to be really hurt by this because that's a team that loves to play violent and hit. And I think that they're definitely going to feel the impact of this a little bit to that degree. Let's talk a little bit about this upcoming preseason game we have going on tomorrow, Brendan, the final one here for your Seattle Seahawks. It's one that actually has a couple key parts, I think, for us to pay attention to. It's not going to be one we're going to do. We're going to do typical previews here at the B&B show throughout the year where we really do look exhaustively at these teams and some of the matchups and all of that. But these are preseason games where that's not as much on point or at play. And so really want to concentrate with you, Brendan, today on looking at this matchup and looking at some specific areas. And I think that the first area to look at is we got word from Mike today that we are going to get some of Trayvon Diggs in this game, and we're going to get him some run here. First question with Diggs on this one is, do you almost have to kind of acknowledge in Diggs with the late hour that you signed him that he just has to kind of be on the active roster because there's really not enough time for him to come in here, acclimate, be at his best, compete in full to the same degree that the guys that are currently on the roster in that back end cornerback situation are in? Or do you feel like, no, he needs to show you something to know that Dansby's going to be able to be okay to be cut?
Well, I don't get the sense you're going to get much out of Dansby or Fuller right now, so it's not a very high bar to clear. And I would assume that Diggs is capable of showing stuff in practice and training camp, off of a actual outside of an actual football game, that shows that he's at least able to do what we need him to do. And the standard should not be that high for a guy like Trayvon Diggs. We got him for the veteran minimum. His deal is heavily incentive laden, with incentives that he's almost certainly not going to hit. Like, it would take a lot for him to hit those incentives. So I think that he's probably pretty safe at this point. I don't think there's any risk of him getting released before the season starts. I don't necessarily feel like I need to see a bunch from him. I'm pretty confident he's going to be more ready to play than a guy like Fuller or Dansby right now, because I don't know. I'm not impressed with what I see from those guys at all. Like, against the Titans, I know there was some good coverage stuff, but come up and make a tackle in the run game, man. Come up on like, there was some very passive stuff from them, I thought. So I think Diggs is relatively safe on the roster at this point.
You think him and Igbenogany are both going to probably make it?
Yeah, I think you need Igbenogany because he's flexible, right? He can play inside and outside. He's got experience doing both. And with the Eamon Wari stuff being a little bit of a mystery now, where we know he's working his way back, but we don't know if he's going to actually be back, I think you gotta, for now. And he's played pretty well so far this preseason, so maybe you keep him around even after that, but I think Noah's safe.
Feels like, I do agree. Feels like right now we've got a real hotly contested battle for the final edge group. Mike Morris has got a little bit of flashing through preseason. Jared Ivey's, I think, really worked his ass off, despite the fact he's carrying that club on his hand, and that club just keeps getting bigger every time I see it.
Right.
Thing's huge. But then Connor O'Toole comes in and says, hey, I'm here too. A sack and a half this last week. Jamie Sheriff says, hey, I'm here as well, with a half a sack, looking good with quick pressure off the edge. Who's winning this final edge spot? I know that this game may carry some of the weight, but who's right now the leader in the locker room when it comes to that final edge spot?
I still probably lean Morris, because you can play him on the edge and play him inside because he's a bigger guy. I think they like that flexibility. That's been one theme this offseason. The Seahawks talking a lot about how they really like having flexible players. And to them, having a player that is elite in one area and not very good in other areas is not nearly as good as having a guy that can do some of everything. That's why they really like a player like a Julian Love that can play all over the field, more so than maybe a safety that is elite at deep zones but not really good at anything else. So I think that flexibility is going to be good for Mike Morris. The other thing to keep in mind is it looks like they're going to be moving some of the linebackers around this year and playing them on the edge a little bit. Tyrese Knight, I think, is going to get to see some opportunities playing as an edge rusher on certain downs. And, there could be some situations where you slide Knight inside and then you let Drake Thomas rush from the outside. I've seen a little bit of that in some of these practice photos. And you look at it, actually, I was a little bit surprised. I was looking at Tyrese Knight's career so far. About 9 to 10% of his snaps so far in the NFL have been lined up as an edge rusher. So I think you're going to see him take some of the load. And then I think you're going to see Mike Morris take some of those snaps. And I think between those two things, you've got your fifth edge. That would be my guess right now.
Yeah, I would probably fall in pretty close alignment to it. I don't think anybody's done enough to really differentiate themselves past just falling back into what you kind of expected walking a bit into camp on that side of it. When we look over on the offensive side of the ball, Brennan, boy, it's really tough for me and we got the word that Jalen Milroe is going to play the whole game, which is great. But I find myself having a hard time. It's, I think, one of our least liked videos that we've done together was our draft day reaction of Arroyo and Milroe.
Right.
That was one that people got really mad at us about. And especially the Milroe side of it, of our outlook. And I'm having a hard time of not leaning into confirmation bias. You know what I'm saying here? Where my pre-draft evaluation feels really close to on point, despite the hankles that it raised in some of the Hawk fan base. Do you find yourself similarly fitting to that? Do you feel like this is just we need to give him this time? Maybe you're seeing improvement that I'm not maybe seeing as much on. What are your takeaways with where we're at with Milrow right now?
Well, last preseason, Jalen Milroe's Pro Football Focus grade was 41. So far this year, it's 51. So I guess he is getting better by some metric, right? He's now, instead of the worst player in football, he is just one of the worst players in football. So he's got that going for him. So, at this rate, by the time we get to 2032, he'll be a starting caliber NFL quarterback, right?
I suppose so. It might take that time.
Right. And look, I said this in a video talking about Milroe a few days ago. I might be the wrong person to ask here because I thought he sucked in college. I thought he sucked when we drafted him. I thought he sucked last year, and I think he sucks now. So maybe I'm the wrong person to ask. Maybe you got to ask somebody who's got a little bit more of at least a more open-minded perspective on him. But at the same time, I just think he's bad because of my pre-draft evaluation of him being bad. I think he's bad because he's been playing bad. And we're through 2 preseason games. He's played a total of 4 quarters, and we haven't put any points on the board with him out there. I know we missed 1 field goal with him out there, so that should have been 3 points. But it just seems like you can't string anything together with him out there. He can make 1 or 2 good plays, but he can't string together a sequence of plays that are good enough to actually get you into the end zone. He can't actually sustain something for 5, 6, 7 plays in a row. And I'm not. I know that this was a multi-year commitment to him, right? Because you knew that he wasn't ready coming out of college, and you knew he wasn't close to being ready. But at the same time, there is a how should I put this? There is an opportunity cost of giving Jalen Milroe these reps. And these reps that you're giving Milroe in practice and preseason and camp could be going to another quarterback that actually fits your offense and is more likely to become a viable quarterback in this league. So I think about it along those lines, and I'm like, if we don't see something a lot better this week against Kansas City, and we're not getting the sense that this is actually going somewhere now, kind of looking to pivot off of it this upcoming offseason. That's kind of where I am. And again, I might be the wrong person to ask here, but I'm doing my best.
Well, and I know your struggle, and this is the struggle from us folks that do this stuff is that we looked a lot at Jalen. Brendan didn't just arrive at his opinion wantonly or just took an initial look at Jalen and went, eh. Looked at a lot of games of the guy. So it's, we did a lot of scouting and he had a lot of starts in college to look at. So there was a lot of data to come away with an outlook on him as a player, good or bad, one way or the other. And so it's very hard when so much of this fits in alignment to what you saw with him in Alabama tape. And that's the hard part for me is that the issues I have in his game are so numerous. It's not just merely the processing. It's not merely just the mechanics that need to be cleaned up. It's control of the offense. It's going through his reads. It's the sense of the pressure. It's utilization of the legs. It's so many different things that you see in his game that you go, man, it just seems like a lot to have to clean up here still. That's the part where I wonder on the progress. I'm sure progress is happening, but it does just feel like there's sometimes a bit of stagnation here.
Right. Right. I mean, it just feels like there's too much between him and being able to play football. And this is something we talked about when we were talking about him right after we drafted him or even before we drafted him. Like you look at the list of deficiencies in his game, it's almost like a checklist of the things you need to do to be a quarterback in the NFL. The ability to throw with touch, the ability to run an offense, the ability to, all these things that we were saying needs to get better. It's like everything that you actually need to play quarterback in the NFL. You don't need to be able to throw a 100-mile-an-hour fastball to be a good quarterback in the NFL. That was one thing that Milroe had that some people liked.
Yeah.
I just look at this. I look at the fact that next year's draft is going to have a ton of quarterbacks in it, some of which I'm already kind of hot to trot on. And I'm like, look, if things don't start heading the right way very soon here, I'd kind of rather let Milroe go to a team where maybe they're running an offense that suits his specific talents. Like if you look at what Miami's going to build this year with Malik Willis, maybe you let Milroe go there. Maybe that's an offense he could have some success in. And I know some of the Milroe defenders would criticize Fleury for not modifying the offense when Milroe's out there, but I don't think you should have to build a whole entire new offense for your third string quarterback anyway. Like, it's hard enough to build one good offense. I don't think you should be trying to build a second whole, completely different offense around your third string quarterback just so he can have a little bit of success. So it's hard for me to go that way with it either.
Yeah, I would be the same way as you on this. You drafted him to be in a West Coast offense last year. So, like, you knew what you were bringing him in to have to develop within. That was going to be very hard with his skill set, not being necessarily the most accurate passer or playing with the best of processing. And so, you kind of knew what this was going to be as far as that goes, and maybe you give it the time. But I think you're talking about this in the right way. And the next offseason is one where, well, I can give this guy 2 years. If we're through the end of the 2 years and the progress is where it is, I don't think that there should be a forward to third year, especially when it's taking up a roster spot, especially when next year's draft of quarterbacks is going to be so deep. As much as it's going to be strong, it's going to be a deep class, meaning that there's
Yeah.
guys you can get in the second, third, fourth, fifth round who very well may be on your outlook of things better as far as their outlook of a potential player versus where you may be standing on Milrow. I hope I'm wrong with this. I hope he can go out there and light the world on fire in this last preseason game and give us something really to kind of sink our teeth into as far as hope goes. I've really going back on through the all 22 beyond the first look, looking at the all 22, Brendan, it almost gets worse for me on the 22. It's almost harder for me to explain at times watching him on the 22.
Right. I think 2 weeks in a row now, he's taken a sack on fourth down, which is the absolute worst thing that you can do as a quarterback. Like, it's fourth down. Interception doesn't really matter that much. Just throw it.
Mm.
And he's done it 2 games in a row. And this last game, this Titans game, he didn't even look like he was having fun out there. He looked kind of like the body language was bad. There was a lot kind of going on there beyond just the fact that he played a bad game. It was, he felt like he didn't even want to be out there. So hopefully we see something better tomorrow night. But I just don't see how this comes together, because I think this team is pretty married to this style of offense right now, the Shanahan offense. I don't
Mhm.
think that next season or whenever we lose Fleury, we're going to say, okay, let's bring in Greg Roman, somebody that builds offenses around more mobile quarterbacks, because Greg Roman was the guy who had some success with Kaepernick earlier in his career. Like, I don't think you're going to do that. So, send them somewhere where they run 20 RPOs every game or something like that. There are teams out there that might benefit from that, but I don't think this is one of them. And I look at the quarterbacks available in next year's draft, even as late as day 3, and I'm like, I think some of these guys could run the Shanahan offense.
Agreed. Yeah, I find myself in the same territory. And let's face it, you're going to have a bevy of picks as well into next year's draft to maybe go grab one of those guys. So it all kind of aligns up potentially at that time. We'll just have to see how it goes and see how this final preseason for Jalen goes and what he does. I think it's also telling when you watch Hard Knocks, you got Mike sitting there begging him to run the ball, and he's kind of pushing back against Mike on running the ball because he's trying to develop his quarterback. I think that's also a little bit of a behind the curtain snapshot as to a little bit of the push and pull going on in this situation at times and trying to get some productivity out of him as he's in this development cycle. Trying to become the West Coast passer, and Mike's going, let's get something from you though right now while that development's coming on, because we're not getting anything from you in this development pure as it's
Yeah.
running as it is right now.
Yeah, and like how would we use him if we were going to use him in games this season? We wouldn't use him as like a pure backup quarterback where he goes out there and runs Shanahan stuff. We would send him out there to run the ball. We would send
Yeah.
him out there to basically be like a wildcat quarterback almost. And he's not going to prove that he's capable of that stuff by playing pure drop back quarterback. He's going to prove it by taking off and running. And like that first interception he had against the Titans, there was free eats on the left side. He could have just taken off and run to the left side. There's nobody over there. I think he's getting a first down on that play easily, but instead he throws it right to the linebacker. And it feels like a microcosm of what we're seeing here. And remember, if he doesn't do what we want him to do against the Chiefs, there's not really going to be another opportunity for him before next offseason, like next spring, because we're not going to play him in games. So he's just going to get reps in practice with third stringers mostly. There's not going to be much of an opportunity for us to change our position on Milrow, because he's just not going to get to play. Like, this isn't any given Sunday where the third string quarterback actually got in there and was really good. This is real life. And in real life, Jalen Milrow, this is almost his last chance for 6+ months to show anything encouraging. So if we don't see it, I would kind of like to get my exit strategy out there.
As we're at that point. So a lot hindering on a lot, I think, on this game for Jalen beyond me and Brendan. Just I think the organization is going to be looking very close to this last game. If it's in line to it, I said this as well. Maybe there could be a possibility. This Brendan. I'm going to check tonight with some of the guys in the syndicate who were out there in person watching training camp. If that maybe the progression has happened on the practice field, we just don't see the connection of it to the game day yet. Like last year, it wasn't on the practice field, and then it wasn't in game day. This year, maybe it's on the practice field in training camp, but we're just not getting it to game day, i.e., maybe you can have some hope that connection will come down the line. I don't know. I'm wondering on that because people are trying to say leading up to these preseason games that he did look better, that he did look improved, that he had seemingly stepped forward in training camp. So that's also a thing that does happen sometimes where players can have things happen where things are coming forward, practice field showing up, not quite yet popping up in the game.
Yeah, and that's another thing that's kind of annoying, right? We keep hearing he looks so much better in camp. He's improving in camp. He's doing all this stuff in camp, and then you get to these preseason games and you don't see it. Like it starts to get frustrating.
Yeah, boy does it ever. I don't think there's going to be a lot of other stuff going on here. We've got the two receivers, I think, pretty much locked up with Montorio, Foster, and White. With Bobo's injury going down, is probably your 1-2 receivers on the back end of the roster. With Richmond going down, that probably more solidifies the linemen that are going to make this roster. There's less of a question of that. Stevens, Haynes have been pretty solid here. So I think we're pretty good down the line. I think the question I would ask you next on this would be, what is the plan for the safety position for the Seahawks now with Bud Clark going down and he wasn't going to be a starter, but probably was going to have a role where he's going to fill up some snaps. Do you have your safety replacement on roster? And I don't mean by Akata. We know Akata is going to be the replacement of starter, but that guy that can come off the bench and give you the Akata from last year, give you the guy that doesn't miss a beat. Do you have that guy on the roster, or is this going to be one of the places that John's going to have to make a move?
I'm not against D'Anthony Bell. And by the way, I've seen a couple comments in chat from people saying my microphone's really quiet. Can a couple other people confirm that that's their experience? I can try to boost it a little bit if that is indeed the case. So just let me know in chat if that's happening for you as well. But what I would say is I think D'Anthony Bell, especially because D'Anthony Bell's been here for a previous season, probably a little bit better off than anybody we could go get because he's got familiarity in Mike's defense. He's also got some flexibility where he's able to play some nickel corner and safety. And I'm pretty comfortable with D'Anthony Bell as the first safety off the bench. The fourth safety, right now probably Rodney Thomas, if I had to guess. That's a little bit more uncomfortable. And then you've got guys like Max and Hook who could get involved as well. And I think that if you're going to sign somebody, the name is probably Donovan Wilson because you've already had him in for a visit. He's got a connection with some of these Cowboys, guys like Aiden Durd, guys like DeMarcus Lawrence and Dante Fowler. But the thing that I like about the guys that we have is they're familiar with this defense, and playing safety in the McDonald defense is not easy. It's not easy to play safety here because we need them to be ubiquitous. So I look at a guy like Donovan Wilson, who has mostly been a box safety in his career, to my knowledge. I don't know how that would work. So I'm kind of comfortable with what we got. I'm really bummed about the Bud Clark thing, don't get me wrong. But I think D'Anthony Bell can get it done. I like that guy, and I've been impressed with him so far in camp.
Trade deadline, let's just say that we come to find that maybe there's an injury to one of those two guys or Okada. Would you make a run at the deadline for a Budda Baker?
That is intriguing because it is about time that guy gets moving, right? It is about time, most of the other stuff of the previous regime for the Cardinals has been cleared out. That's like the last man standing. That is.
So he carries, he would carry, if you did at the deadline, let's say about halfway into the year, he's going to carry about an $8.5 million base for the remaining portion of the season. Next year, he's on the final year of his deal in 2027, where he would be on the hook to the Seattle Seahawks for about $16.5 million.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. You got me on this one. I like this one. I like this idea. I think that he'd probably start over Okada, right?
Probably would. Some of it got to what you just talked about, being familiarity with the scheme can't be undersold because you're not going to walk in like a Carroll defense and I'm in cover 3 as a safety 24/7 like Quandre could, right? Like I know my responsibility, I got it. This is going to be more of a lot of doing different variety of things from that way. So it might take a little bit of a ramp up period, but I just look at that as where it's probably not going to cost you huge draft capital to do it. The cost, you can fit that into your books. We're probably with Bud Clark, it's going to be hard to necessarily be able to just rely on him next offseason going, okay, he's back off the broken foot. He'll be ready to go and he'll be ready to take off and he'll be ready to be impactful. We do have at that point Akata as a free agent after the season. Right. So it gives you some reinforcement for that too. That's just something I'm kind of casually I'm side-eyeing. I like my Huskies, Brendan. I'm like you. I got a little bit of a soft spot for Huskies. So,
Yeah. And Love, this might be his last year. Next year's a contract year for him. If it's possible that this is it for Love, and then if you could just pivot straight from Love to Budda Baker for a year while you're trying to figure out who you've got on the back end, that works really well too. So I'm into that. What do you think you'd have to give up to get Budda out of Arizona, though?
One of your third rounders?
Yeah, I think I'm doing it. That would be your big trade deadline acquisition. And the thing to keep in mind is we can easily absorb pretty much any cap hit in a trade that we need to. Like, unless we trade for Josh Allen or somebody like that, we'll have no problem absorbing whoever we trade for. The Leonard Williams extension, we don't know exactly how it breaks out yet, but we're probably saving money on that. It's probably taking this year's cap hit down by a little bit. And we're going to be able to turn around and trade for pretty much whoever we want to at the deadline. And that's going to be really valuable and really good. So that is intriguing. I would definitely be on board with that.
Something to monitor and track as we kind of pay attention to the secondary is I think that you can get around the Bobo thing. You can get around the Oots injury that we had. I think Lampy will be fine. But this is the one where I wonder on with Bud is that the ready-made replacement may not be as much in-house and that he did have a role in this team and that they may have to do a little bit of something proactively down the line to, kind of deal with that. Is there anything else in this preseason game that you're going to be kind of looking for specifically or going to be really paying attention to?
I'd say Jacardia right because I think Emmanuel Wilson got kidnapped or something because I haven't heard anything about him for weeks. Starting to look like he might not be ready to start the season. And if that is the case, then Wright probably makes the team initially, or at the very least, he's active for that first game as your third running back. So I want to see a little bit more there. I know he had the long touchdown run against Tennessee, but other than that, it was a lot of 2 yards in a cloud of dust. So
he turned down some bad reads too on the like. There's a reason his PFF grade was as low as it was. Like he had some legit bad choices.
Yeah, I was surprised it was that low, but there is a little bit of Chris Carson there. He just needs to harness it just a little bit more, I think. I think he could be like a Chris Carson.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully we get a little bit more there. I'd like to see maybe Emmanuel Henderson make some plays offensively as well as special teams. Because to me, he's the guy who could take Cody White's job. And White has not had a good preseason so far, and Emmanuel Wilson made some really nice plays on special teams last week. If we can get a little bit of offensive playmaking out of Emmanuel Henderson, that's interesting because he's younger and cheaper than Cody White. So I know you said you think White's pretty well stuck to the roster right now. I'm not convinced. I think Emmanuel Henderson could make a play for that last receiver spot.
I think Emmanuel's really restricted in what he can do for as a receiver. I really do. You can run him bubble screen stuff and that, but route running and his hands, I think are kind of questionable there. And whereas I think Cody should have come down with that 9 ball with Jalen down the sideline. I think that's one where you got to make that catch like the corner's got his back turned to you. He's not reacting to the ball. All you got to do is jump up there and catch the ball. I know he came down hard on that, but I would have loved to seen him come down with it. But I think that he's done just enough to more. With what I've seen with Henderson, there's still some issues there that were on tape with him coming out of college where his hands fight him with the ball in the air. Like he's fighting his hands. And as a receiver, that's tough as a pro to have that go on. It's why they're running bubble screens for him. You manufacture the touches because you can't trust him naturally to just go run his route and win, in my opinion. But we'll see. He definitely has a lot of speed and burst, and there's some ability there if the receiving stuff can kind of be,
Hmm.
ironed out, I guess is the word I'm trying to look
Yeah,
for.
and for this team, special teams might be more valuable from a receiver that far down the depth chart than receiving ability anyway. So I like what I see from Henderson on special teams. I think he's got some skills there. I like that.
Be an interesting fight. I mean, it's coming down the line with those guys. Pretty well everything else is solidified, though. It sounds like even with Surratt's going to make the roster on the outside off-ball linebacker. Chris Paul, as good as he played last week, is probably going back to the practice squad if you can fit him there, because O'Connell, Tyrese Knight, Thomas, Jones are locked in there. So a lot of positions on this team that are kind of been solidified. Very few questions left coming into this game, Brendan.
Mhm.
But I also think we got to see some good flurry stuff in that first quarter of the game. If Myers hits that field goal, it's 16-3 with you having your second stringers going up against their starters,
Yeah.
which I thought was pretty impressive. So, Flurry's given us a couple of opening touchdown drives. Seems like he's got a pretty good script at the very least that he's beginning out with in the course of these games. So hopefully we get to just see more of that and Milroe being able to play with more of like the 2s and 3s rather than the pure 4s so that maybe he can look more functional, because that seems to be adding to some of the dysfunction too.
Yeah. Although I will say, it seems like this team, not only are they trying to protect their starters, they're trying to protect their key backups as well. Like, it was really surprising to me that Tyrese did not play last week, but that's clearly a guy they're like, we got to protect him. We got to play it safe
Mhm.
here because we know we like him. We know we have a plan for him this year, and we just don't want to put him in that situation. So we may be playing all third and fourth stringers in this game. I don't know what to expect. But
I don't have a
what?
problem if they do.
Yeah, I mean, do you like that approach, by the way, to have not played your starters at all in any preseason game this year? Do you think that's the right approach?
Yeah, because McVay's been at the forefront of this. He's one of the coaches that's indoctrinated this. I'm not going to play my guys in the preseason when that formerly was somewhat of the standard. And he's had his team plenty ready to play for the regular season. This is why the inter squad practices are so important. I'd love to run multiple if we could, more than just the Tennessee. I'm sure part of the problem is hard to get people out to Washington. You have to go to Tennessee, or you have to go down to here or go down to there to do those inter squad practices. They don't want to come up to you. But that's where you've hopefully gotten into some great work with that. The other part of this too is to remember that we played a long season last year. And part of this resting has to do with the fact that you played longer than anybody else. You got to practice longer than anybody else. So where a lot of these teams who had their season cut short a month and a half, maybe even longer than that, who basically were stopping practice and you're continuing through, you're able to kind of build on that from a momentum angle, I think, as you get into training camp in a way that's unique, in a way that other teams are not able to do so from some of their limitations by practice. So I think this bottom line is I think this team will be ready to play. I got no problem when you've had already, Brendan, 4 season-ending injuries? We got Oots, we got Richmond, we got Bud Clark, and is there one more I'm missing here? I feel like there's one more I might be missing on this one.
Bobo.
And you got Bobo as well. So you've already had 4. These aren't just injuries. These are season-ending injuries. And so I think kind of paying a little bit of attention to that as well and acknowledging, okay, last year you only had McIntosh at this time. That was it. That was your only injury. So you can overcome these guys, you can, but I think you got to sort of take stock and be a little bit careful as well, considering the situation.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we'll see how we come out in that opener against the Patriots, but if we come out of that game sluggish and we don't look very good, that subject's going to come up. Because I remember when I was much younger, the Chargers teams, back in San Diego with Phillip Rivers, LaDainian Tomlinson, when Norv Turner was their coach. Every year they didn't play anybody in the preseason, and it felt like every year that first month of the regular season they were sleepwalking. And people were like, hey, is that really worth the trade-off? So we'll see how it goes for us, but I'm not against it. And I was looking it up. Last year, the starters played like one drive against Kansas City, one preseason game. I don't know if there's a difference between playing like 10 snaps and playing 0 snaps. I don't know if that's doing anything of impact.
I don't either. And I think that you bring up Norv Turner, you're bringing up an offensive-minded coach. And if I was reckoning to guess, Brendan, if we have, 2 different style of coaches that run an intense practice or a non-intense practice, probably the offensive coach is going to be more often than not as intense as the defensive-minded coach, would be my estimation. And my point of this being is that I think that Norv not having that Charger team is probably a little bit represented by that versus Mike, who we know runs very intense practices, very intense training camps. And so with that, I think you're going to get your players more better to roll at that point, working that. And let's face it, the first 2 years under Mike, I don't think that we've looked at these teams, even the first year where there were some troubles, and said, he doesn't have this team ready to play, or they don't look physically prepared, or they're getting out physicaled. We haven't said that at any point in time. We've had other issues we can maybe point to, but not that. So I think we'll be okay. It may be a question, like you say, if it comes up and that they do show off and are a little sluggish or a little out of whack. Um, but I think we'll be okay knowing the history of this and knowing how Mike runs his training camp practices. Moving on to a little bit outside the Hawk news. We had a little bit of breaking news today in regards to the Rams trying to now desperately, it seems, reinforce their depth as they're starting to maybe recognize some of their places on their team aren't the strongest. As they go back out and bring back in Tutu Atwell. Where was he at, Brendan, by the way?
He had signed with the Dolphins. He was with Miami.
Okay.
So he's probably pretty unhappy. He goes from the worst receiver core in football, where he could have maybe even been a starter, to a Rams team where he'll be high on the depth chart, but he may not get to play very much.
Indeed. And he signed basically a vet minimum deal, it looks like, for Miami. So it's going to be a fairly cheap one for the Rams to bring in there for a player that they're very familiar with. Although they had a weird thing last year where they paid him $8 million and then they didn't get him on the field ever. He kind of got in the doghouse or something, weird there. But probably does speak to the fact that CJ Daniels is not ready to be the number 3 receiver behind Devontae Adams and Puka, huh?
And don't they still have Whittington, Jordan Whittington from Texas?
Whittingham, Xavier Smith.
Yeah. That's, Tutu's probably better than those guys, so it's not a bad trade. And the guy they gave up, I don't think was going to make the team. It's a Jarquez Hunter, running back.
Yeah, probably not. No.
Yeah. He was their 4th round pick, though, I believe. So that's actually kind of bad if he doesn't make the team. But yeah, it's a bit of an interesting move. It does kind of highlight maybe they didn't think everything all the way through here. It does kind of feel like they wanted a do-over. And the do-over is not going to be particularly expensive because, like I said, Hunter probably not going to make the team. But it does highlight their lack of depth at that position. And I don't know if they expect Puka to get suspended at this point, but if he does, then you've got nothing out there except for old Devontae Adams, who I think is on the verge of physically breaking down here. So it makes sense why they would want to do something like this.
It does. It was strange to watch them not do a little bit more to reinforce, even for an Atwell kind of signing to bring him back. But probably his annoyance, like to your point on this, where he's like, you didn't use me last year. I'm going to go to Miami where I actually get some touches and I can, rebuild my value and then go get a contract after this year. And they went, and like they matumboed him. Not so fast. No. Okay, here we go. So that'll be interesting to see. Good for the Rams, though, to reinforce something that was going to be a pretty heavy weakness for them. We'll have to kind of track that throughout the course of this year. We got a donation, but a good chance for me here quickly, Brendan, just to thank the sponsor of our show, which is Prize Picks. And both me and Brendan have the same code with Prize Picks, America's #1 sports app. And that's going to be HMA, or you can click the link down in my description section below. And when you do that and you put down a $5 winning ticket, they will put $150 in your account. One $5 win gets you $150 when you use that code HMA. We got baseball full swing. Looks like the Mariners are maybe heating up. Certainly Cal Raleigh's bat's heating up in a big way. Go take advantage of that today with some of the overs or unders on that side. You got the seasonal picks. You got the game day picks. Brendan tells me that even though you tend to have to be on a casino in the state of Washington to use the app in full, if you're just doing game picks, you can actually just use the app off of a casino network. So kind of cool. Go get your winning ticket, though. $5 winning ticket, $150 back to you. Terms and conditions do apply. Please do see their site for details. And always remember to gamble responsibly as well. These are a couple of my seasonal picks here with Jacoby Myers over 750 yards receiving for the season and Jackson Smith over 1,324 yards. We'll begin some more picks out to you guys along those lines here as we get up closer to the NFL season. But take advantage today. Both me and Brendan sponsored by Prize Picks. Shout out to Prize Picks for sponsoring us, and shout out to you guys for using the code.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Helps
Thank you very much. That definitely does. Big shout out to the Prize Picks for helping us in the way that they are. So we've got the final preseason game tomorrow, Brendan. What's the next shoe that's going to drop with this team of significant order in your opinion? Maybe that could be a trade deadline deal. Maybe everything's fit to serve until we get to that point. Or maybe there's something in your mind that's impending. Is there anything right now? What's that next shoe that's going to drop for this team?
Well, I would definitely like to see what happens on cut down day first. See who actually ends up making the team. Maybe we'll find out something about the way this team likes a certain player a little bit more than maybe we're thinking, or a little bit less than maybe we're thinking based on what happens on cut down day. That could be informative, right? If they, for instance, were to keep Rodney Thomas and AJ Finley on the roster, maybe that would tell us something about how they feel about safety, where they don't feel comfortable and they're trying to give themselves as many opportunities as possible. So I want to see what shakes out there. And we might also see something like, what if Torrey Horton gets put on IR? What if Emmanuel Wilson gets put on IR? Some of these guys that have been missing practice lately, what if we end up finding they're missing 4 to 6 games to start the season? So I'd like to see all that play out. But in terms of another shoe that drops, there isn't a lot because you've already done so much of your business already extending all these players. You could, I guess, extend Uchenna Nwosu, but I don't think this team is going to do that. You could extend Jason Myers, but I really don't think this team is going to do that. Not now. Doesn't make a lot of sense. There really aren't that many other guys. You could, extend Drew Lock, I guess, but that's not going to, you can give him a new contract next offseason if you want to. It's not going to be that
Yeah.
hard. So I can't really think of another move to make at the moment. I think you're just kind of rolling forward, pretty happy with your salary cap situation and pretty happy with the way things set up for the future because, I even put together a little spreadsheet in a video a couple weeks ago looking at all the things on this team that are now locked up for 3 years minimum. And it's like 3 pieces of an offensive line. You've got an all-world wide receiver. You've got a wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. You got 3 pieces of the best interior defensive line in football. You got an all-world cornerback. You got whatever Nicky Manwari is. You got the best punter in football. And then you've got a bunch of guys on smaller rookie deals who are going to be something, right? Like Elijah Arroyo is going to be something. I don't know if it's going to be great, but he's going to be at least capable. You've got Julian Neal and Bud Clark for the next 4 years at least on their rookie deals. Like there's a reason why ESPN ranked us as the number 1 best team in the league in terms of their future outlook over the next several years. Because nobody has it stacked up like us, where the only thing that we don't have locked up long term is a quarterback. And some people would say, well, that's the hardest part. But maybe it's not the hardest part when you have everything else set up this well.
I think it becomes the hardest part when you're the Minnesota Vikings in their current situation. That's where it becomes the hardest part. But when you got the bird in hand, it does not become the hardest part, especially when that bird in hand has 2 years of club control under his current contract. You ain't just going to throw him away next year if you can't get to a deal. So it is the place that I've been trying to let Seahawks fans know on this is that enjoy the Super Bowl, but really just enjoy where this team is at because this is so unique to be in, to come off a championship and still have such a bright future. How many championship teams now see themselves start to erode and be diminished, Brendan, after they go to the championship? And yet you're on the opposite end of the scale. And we just got to revel in that, enjoy that as Seahawks fans, because it's such a unique position to be in.
Yeah. Like I said, nobody's got it like us. Nobody's got this set up so well. Even a team like Philadelphia, as good as their roster is, you look at that roster and you're like, there's going to come a point where that team's going to be destitute. The Rams, they're betting a lot on some older players that we don't necessarily have. And they got a lot of really good players that are in the final year of their deal. And it doesn't seem like there's money to keep them around. Like nobody has it better than us. That doesn't mean we're going to win the Super Bowl every year, but we're going to have an opportunity to compete for it every year going forward. And that's all you can ask. Like, there's no easy button that John Schneider can just push that gives him an automatic Super Bowl. There's no just doing this thing that gives you an automatic Super Bowl in the NFL. All you can do is build a team that gives you as many chances as possible. And that's what we've done.
Amen. Yeah. Amen. Well said, man. We got a donation here from Feed Me. Thank you for the $2 don't know. Appreciate you for that. Says, so the Patriots are confirming that Spoon is better than Gonzalez. And the report's coming out today, Brendan, that supposedly the Patriots are not willing to match the Devin Witherspoon contract that the Seahawks gave. You buying into that? Or you think that this is actually Gonzalez maybe doing the reported trying to get a percentage of the cap thing that we heard about rumor-wise a week ago?
Yeah, I mean, I do buy that. But I will say this, like, if you're the Patriots, this is how business gets done. If you didn't want to give him more than we gave Spoon, you should have paid him first, period. Are we going to enter a world now where the Patriots become a cheap ownership group where they're not willing to spend money? I don't understand this. Look, if he's looking for like 40 million or a percentage of the cap, then absolutely I understand telling him to beat it. And just you can play out the rest of your rookie deal and take your chances. But if you're talking about just paying him top of the market money, that's how things are done now. And if you're the Patriots, you haven't paid Drake May yet. Like, you can afford to pay Gonzalez. So I'd be very surprised if they're actually gonna play this in such a way that they lose him after the rookie deal.
I was surprised by it too, Brendan. I don't know what's at play. It made sense when it was the percentage of the cap, and you go, okay, that tracks that an NFL team doesn't want to do that, and his representatives are hardlining, and okay, maybe that's so. But this is one where, to your point, haven't signed Drake. They do have only a $15 million of cap space next year, as it currently is situated, and that's going to be probably about a $65 million contract you're going to sign Drake May to. So maybe they're already trying to get out ahead of this a little bit. But the way that this could impact us is that we have a week 1 game coming up, and does he decide to hold in for that game? Does that become a part of that process? Because that's a much different looking game with no Gonzalez out there.
Last year, the Patriots played, I believe, 1 game without Gonzalez, and they lost at home to the Raiders, who would go on to win more games the rest of the season.
Yeah. So there you go. I mean, it's they don't have the reinforcements there to deal with on that side of it, and we'll see how it goes. But strange situation in New England, Brendan, to see them. That seemed to be like a no-brainer type of signing you get done if it is that you just don't want to match the deal, especially matching the deal here where you're lopping on the last 2 years of the rookie contract. So it's a real deal. That's the amount's up there, but there's a way to make the structure of the deal work. And maybe it is that other teams don't want to go on the 6-year contract thing. Brendan, maybe that's a John Schneider unique thing that he's willing to do, or that Roseman's willing to do. But not that something, the other teams are like, nothing past 4 years. It's too much of a risk.
Yeah, let me check something with the Gonzo here because, okay, yeah, he missed 13 games as a rookie. He missed 1 game in his second year, and then he missed 3 games last year. So maybe it's just a matter of like the injuries. Maybe they feel like, well, you've only played 34 of a possible 51 games to start your career. We're not comfortable giving top of the market money to somebody like that right now. I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of, though, because to me, it's just like this is just business as usual. And I understand not wanting to give him a percentage of the cap or something stupid, but there's a process here. And the process is when you are the next guy to get paid, you set the market until the next guy whose turn it is to get paid.
Yeah. I think to your injury point side, he did tear his ACL. And I always wonder about these doctors with some of these players after the ACL has been torn, where they're looking at the MRI and they're like, it's repaired. It is repaired. Okay. Like it is like, I swear, if we looked at AJ Brown's knee under an MRI, I think we'd be over there like, oh my God. Like there'd be like, little holes and Swiss cheese stuff and stuff like that going on. I think that sometimes these guys look at this MRI. I remember I was talking to a girl about this that was speaking about the athletes coming into SD San Diego facility. Like they get all these pro athletes down there that get MRI'd. And she's like, all of them have stuff on the MRI, and they don't want to know about it. They don't want you to tell them, but like all of them have stuff on that you can see that's like, oof. So maybe there's a little bit of something going on there with Gonzalez where the doctors have seen that ACL and they're not trusting it on top of the reasons you give of just the sheer amount of games that he's missed. It's definitely, I think, pretty feasible that could be the way that was. Like that could be just enough to kind of keep you back from wanting to spend the dough, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Well, any other items here we might not have covered today, Brendan? I know we had a variety of just kind of random stuff. Did you like the Hard Knocks episode? Kind of a tearjerker there almost a little bit.
Yeah, that's what most of the episode was built around. So, I mean, I understand why that's one of the more gripping narratives right now with this team, that they would want to focus on that because, and other people have observed this too, this Seahawks team is not giving you the typical drama subplots of other Hard Knocks teams because they're a little bit more of a buttoned up organization and they don't give you the same stuff. Like we don't have, like I joked about before, we don't have a Richie Incognito on this team that you can just follow around and he's going to do something stupid and you're going to build a storyline around him every week. We don't have that.
Yeah.
But I think that it's still a really good production. I still think you're getting a lot of really good windows into a good process in the NFL. And yeah, I'm still enjoying it. We got 1 episode left. I'm excited to see what happens there. But overall, I get the sense that outside fans of other teams, are viewing this Hard Knocks as kind of boring because of the absence of those really colorful and really absurd storylines that you get with a bad team. And I think that really does highlight the difference between this organization and many others.
Yeah. Kind of what we hoped we were going to see with it. I will say it's been fun to go on like Reddit and read NFL fans like when Mike has his moments that have been cool and stuff. And they've just sort of like, man, this guy's a great coach, and just watching people really appreciate our organization who don't have a dog in the fight, who, if anything, it's in their interest to look at our organization with shade and go, they're not that good. But instead they're like, man, it's really, really well organization. It's kind of demand. I wish our organization was run like this. It's been makes you very proud of these guys, and I'm proud of our team that they're looked upon as that way, because it's hard to get that praise from NFL fans, Brendan. Like I said, they're wired to go the opposite way with that. So cool, very cool show. Tough one to watch this last week, is that was just a lot of looking away. Like, I don't need to see anymore. I don't need to see anymore. No.
But Bud took it like a champ, though, didn't he?
Boy. Especially because I think if you saw the doctor, he tests the front of the ankle and then he goes to the back, and both seem to really hurt him. That I bet that thing was fully broken, and that's where the pain on that stuff. Yeah, he was an absolute warrior, and he's got his kid there. Daddy, are you okay? And like your heart's just going, you're like, God, no, So I hope they both bounce back fast. Jake as well. The early on in the episode, he's getting kind of questioned by the coach, and you're like, ugh, that doesn't feel good. Knowing what's coming, that doesn't feel good. So hopefully both these guys can bounce back and get back to 100% strength next year, Brendan. But it did make this one a little bit more painful versus some of the funner episodes we've been able to watch with some of the cool behind the scenes type of stuff. Well, folks, we're going to be coming at you all year long here with the B&B show. And if we get any real big time breaking news, we'll do a surprise show for you guys as well. If you're not already, please do get subbed up over to Seahawks Brendan Nelson here on YouTube. He is my cohort here every Thursday, 12 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. We will be going live for you guys, looking at doing a game preview of the upcoming matchups here. So we will keep this rolling throughout the course of this year, and we'll be back next week to discuss some of the cut down stuff and some of the stuff we're hearing throughout the league, and maybe even a move by John. You never can tell with him, Brendan, when it comes down to cut down days. He's always looking to add. He's always looking to stack if he's got an opportunity to do so. So we will be back at it again next week with you guys. Brendan, any final thoughts from you, my man?
I think Netflix is back up, so you can go watch the GTA 6 extended look now. I know it was down earlier for everybody, but I think you can go watch that after you're done with this show. So everybody have fun with that. I'm
struggling with some of the stuff that I'm hearing about that game, man. I want to love it. I want to love it, but the hype is like,
They waited too long. You can't make us wait 13 years for a game and not have us expect way more than you can ever possibly deliver.
Yeah. Well, it just seems like some of the choices they've made, though, too, have been like, why are video games becoming work, Brendan? Mm-hmm. Why am I turning on a video game? It's now not about fun, but it's about, I gotta go do work. Like, when did this become a thing?
Yeah.
It's all grind now.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that a lot of that stuff is at least optional. Like, you don't have to do it. It's not that big a deal. Like, do you remember San Andreas, how you could eat a lot of fast food and make your guy fat? You didn't have to do that. It was just something you could do if you were into that kind of stuff and it was fun. But I'm hoping that in this one, it's not like a requirement. So, but
like
I do
gassing
know
up your
though.
car.
Yeah,
like gassing. I got to go gas my car up.
You have to do that in Fortnite, right? You have to gas your car up.
Yeah, that's BR, and that's multiplayer. You're running on single player, you're flying along your car. Like, let me stop for my gas. We'll see. Some of the video game stuff now has gone more into that grind stuff than it's gone into the fun stuff. And they're like, well, you're doing stuff like I'm grinding the same thing over and over again. That's not great. But we'll see, man. Maybe they can stick the landing here, Brendan, when it comes down to it. Mm-hmm. Kyle from South Park finishing us off with a nice $5 dono. Thank you for all of your support, Kyle, as well as being a member of the channel. Appreciate you. Are the Reds going to call the new penalties accurately? Are the refs going to call the new penalties accurately? Because right now it looks like they pick and choose when they want to call certain penalties.
Yeah, I feel like that's been a thing for a while. That's like holding, right? Like holding happens on pretty much every play in the NFL. But the referees pick and choose when to call it, and there is some undercurrent of them trying to massage the outcome that they want. And that's been around forever. So I do think there's going to be some more of this going forward, and now that you have these suspensions that you can hand out to a player for just a few of these penalties, it's going to be a pretty big problem. And It won't shock me if this ends up being a 1-year experiment that they realize just doesn't work, and then next year they go back to the old system.
Yep. And just your yearly reminder that we don't have full-time refs so that they can get this down and really get their process perfected and whatever that may entail for them to get closer to perfect as you could possibly get. I agree with everything, of course, Brendan just said. I don't like this for this reason. I think that these calls are hard to sometimes determine in real life. I think we sometimes forget we're watching this sport with a camera that's back 200, 300 feet from the action. And we sometimes forget about how fast this sport is on the field, how things go bang, bang, bang. It isn't that this guy's got a player 15 seconds to decide how he's going to always hit this guy. It's collisions, it's instantaneous collisions, and punishing those guys for these kind of situations when it's just football is, to me, just silly. It goes against the spirit of the sport. It adds more penalties when we don't need more penalties. It makes refs more active in the game when we don't need the refs more active in the game. Let these guys play. It's a man's sport. Guys are going to get hurt. They get paid millions of dollars for this. That's part of the reason that they get so well paid. So I hate it, but we'll see how it goes. Maybe they find a way to do it and implement it just right. And it's not that, and like you said, the hip drop, I was worried about that one, but the officials basically were like, we're just not going to call it. And so it was like, okay, it's not going to be this huge problem.
Yeah, the fear would be they decide to whip it out in a playoff game at a crucial moment. They decide we're not going to call it all season, but now we can use it to manipulate an outcome. Like, that's going to cause a big fight. Didn't happen last year, but one of these days it may, and then we're going to have a problem.
Yeah, agreed. And it's being Jay Melfar's asking below if the refs get penalized if they calls go against the rule. No, that's the problem. Is the refs don't get held to a standard. So that's part of how you don't fix something, is if they never really get held to a standard, and they can get calls wrong, and the officiating crew can call things differently this way, but no one's ever really going to double check them on it or really hold them too hard to account. It's like, okay, well, that's why you don't want to have them too active as a part of the sport, and you want to keep them in the background as much as humanly possible. And this kind of rule doesn't do that. As well, are we still not going to expand the rosters, Brendan? You're now suspending my guys willy-nilly here, there, and everywhere, and now you're still going to stick with the 53-man roster? I mean, eventually, NFL probably need to expand this thing.
Especially if they want the 18th game. If they go to an 18th game, you got to give us some more players.
You got it at this point. You keep making these choices that are restricting ball clubs. You got to do something to help them out. I don't know why they want to hurt their product in this way by holding to that 53 like it's with a death grip, Brendan. Like, come on, expand this stuff. Let's go. Appreciate you though for that, Kyle. Thank you for you and Feed Me. Brendan, I appreciate you for doing the show again here today on the stream. Thank you guys for watching. If you're watching Brendan's side, please sub up over to Hawks Nest. If you're watching my side, please sub up over to Seahawks Brendan Nelson. And whichever side you're watching on, hit that like button, as it helps both of our channels grow and really kick off. Got a lot of Seahawks fans out there looking for Seahawks content right now. You tell YouTube to look our direction when you hit that like button. It has a really, really big effect. Thanks for doing the show here with me today, Brendan, and doing it with me here now for 5 years in here on our run here on the show, something like that?
Since 2021, right? 2021 was the first year. So it's been 5 full years.
5 years strong, 5 years and going strong, folks. So we're going to have a hell of a year with you guys. We're really looking forward to covering this team and all of the ins and outs. And boy, what a team it is to cover. Super Bowl champions, very young roster, everybody locked up for the foreseeable future. Future doesn't get brighter anywhere else in the NFL. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else but right here, Brendan, and with you and doing this show. We're going to have a great year, man. We're going to have another great team, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Yes. Can't wait. Title defense time, baby.
Title defense time. Folks, we'll be back in a week. But until that time, hope we don't have to remind you with this team that's so good, that's this set up, that's so well positioned here for a beautiful future, but we're going to do so anyway. Don't you ever forget.